When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouthwatering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
This episode is brought to you by Microsoft Azure. Turn your ideas into reality with an Azure free account. Get everything you need to develop apps across cloud and hybrid environments, scale workloads, create cloud-connected mobile experiences, and so much more. Discover what you can create with popular services free for 12 months. Learn more at azure.com. That's AZURE.com. And sign up for a free account to start building in the cloud today.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to Molby On The Spot, your weekly chance. Thanks to Anfield Index Pro to hear the wit and wisdom of your friend and mine, Mr. Jan Molby. So once again, good evening, Jan.
Good evening, Trevor. I hope you're well.
I am, sir. I have a lot of questions for you. I'm doing my best to be very level-headed about everything, and I think, unless I'm mistaken, when we last spoke, there might have been a couple hours left, I think, in the window, the transfer window, for, some last-minute malarkey to happen, and I don't think either of us were expecting it, and indeed, that's what panned out. With the window closed, Chiesa in the door, we spoke about it briefly on the last show as well, and us being sort of 0-4-3 with the big things everyone wanted. In other words, the defensive midfielder, the left-sided defender, and the contracts to be sorted out completely. It's not like we're 0-for-3. It's a little bit worse than that in terms of the way things have gone in the public perception with Mo Salah's quotes after the tremendous win against United, where I think he played a stormer for himself there, Jan, and drew everyone's attention to the fact that the club haven't spoken to him, therefore putting pressure back on them so he can get hopefully what he wants. We'll talk about the contracts in a second, but overall, you'd have to say, just objectively speaking, that was not a successful window for Liverpool, despite the fantastic position we find ourselves in the league.
No, certainly not. There's a lot of clubs who look back and think they've done better business than Liverpool. But yet again, we have to say that they probably kept their cool. Michael and Richard Hughes and whatever, and gone, well, we'll have a look at the next window or next summer. We won't rush into anything. Obviously, they were 100% sure about Martin Subimendi, but beyond that, they might not be that sure, so they decided to keep the money where it is, go with what we've got, which, if we don't have injuries, it's enough, isn't it? But you still look at the team and you think, we still have a couple of positions where you think, if you get injuries there, you could be in some trouble.
I don't know if you saw the article that came out. It's the latest one of a number of sort of platforms on which David Ornstein, the very respected journalist, has been speaking in glowing terms of Richard Hughes. And the exact quote today that I saw that wound me right up, I'll be honest. And I don't know whether it's I'm, kind of an old man from the country who actually has probably done some work in my time. But the gist of it was, talking about how well Hughes has done, despite the fact, and you love this phrase, that when he arrived at Liverpool, there was a daunting inbox. And I'm just like, I can't get too excited and hero worshipping a football executive because he has some work on. And I do understand, by the way, that there was a lot to do in terms of the managerial team. We can gloss over that, and we shouldn't. It was a remarkably important part of the whole thing. But you see where I'm going with that. It's just, it is a little bit, and you can see how it's going to wind people up. I think I'm too old and wise to bite. But I'm being honest with you about how I felt when I saw that. I was like, really? That's where you're going after, we've seen another window close without us getting the player that we clearly wanted for maybe 3 years now.
Yeah. I mean, again, Trev, it's kind of where the game is heading. Everything is very dramatic, isn't it? Everything is so difficult, isn't it? Even to the extent sometimes we listen to some people talk about the game itself. They talk about the game, I'm thinking, I played it. It might look different to when we played in it, but the basics are the same. It's not that difficult. And especially not if you're good at it, so it's a case of getting on with it. And the reason I'm saying that is because I believe that Richard Hughes is very good at his job. Get on with it, do your job. Arne Slot is very good at his job. Well, he's doing his job, isn't he? He's continued that. He's got, this is not a problem. So Richard Hughes' job is to get on with it. And obviously now this daunting inbox will surely just have the three biggest profiles we have of our football club who have less than 12 months left of their contract. And when you leave it this late, and there is circumstances for the reason that it's been left this late, isn't it? But when you leave it this late, with the players having roughly 4 months before they can negotiate with foreign clubs, the power is with the players. We have a lot of power because we're Liverpool Football Club, and it will be attracted when Richard Hughes offers a new contract, and I guess all three of them want to stay. But the sort of leeway, where's the leverage? Who's the leverage with at the moment? It's probably with the players, isn't it? The players have got the power now with only a couple of months left before they can speak to other clubs.
That's it. Pre-contracts can be, I don't know if you sign a pre-contract, but the initial stages of them can be entered into. And I think they're all at very different places, if I'm honest. Salah has been the most vocal about it, although Virgil has, I think, indicated more strongly that he wants to stay, whereas Salah is just talking about it being the last year of his contract as things stand and that nobody has spoken to him at the club. I think Virgil was probably a little bit more positive about wanting to be here, but also saying that he had not been spoken to. That's quite an odd one, and people won't understand how that could be the case, although I think one loophole there is that I suppose the club could be talking to their agent and not specifically directly to them. Maybe that's one way around it. But the one that's quietest of all, of course, is Trent. Yeah, and nobody's saying a word. And all we've heard over the summer are like quotes like Trent McManaman, which you'll be all too familiar with. What that's a reference to from your time at the club. It's just it seems to me as though that's the one I imagine the club are beavering away at most, because he's the guy who has the highest sell-on value. So how are you feeling about those deals getting done? Is there anything that you're hearing they seem to be really close to the chest? Are you hearing anything about the likelihood of them getting done?
I'm basically hearing what you're hearing, Trevor, and what we're hearing is from the players. At the moment, the only people you're hearing from is the players. That's not unusual because we're not used to hearing from Michael Edwards, and I don't know what Richard Hughes is like in terms of communicating. So we're hearing from the players. The problem we've obviously got is that Mo and Virgil's next contract will take him into what you call the decline period of a footballer. And you kind of got to weigh up is that how big would that decline be? Take a player like Casemiro, who did okay in his first season at Manchester United, but subsequently that one summer was enough to see his legs up. So that kind of decline period So what do we do? I always believe that there's football clubs who will, in the end, agree to any transfer fee or any wages. I don't believe Liverpool Football Club is one of them. I think Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes, everything will have a ceiling. You go into negotiate with a club to buy a player, that player will have a ceiling, and you will do exactly the same once you negotiate with the players. So a lot of people say, well, okay, currently Mo Salah is on 350 grand a week. So what will the ceiling be? Well, I guess that they'll take some of that money off the offer because of the decline period. So what value does the decline period have? And how bad and would that then be? And a lot of money would be probably offered based on Mo Salah doing what he always does, which is play and score goals. But to me, the interest in that isn't it? And also, I do believe that Virgil will look at the contract that he gave to Mo and think, should I maybe be closer to Mo earning 350 grand a week? I believe he's currently on 220. I don't quite buy into this sort of, it's the last contract and he will make them. I think that they're already, I think that okay, they'll be okay financially with our pay rises. But I think Birking's probably looking at that one. And Trent is a strange one, isn't it? We almost get an impression, Trevor, that because we saw it with Jude Bellingham, we kind of asked you the back door and then walked away. Could it be a scenario where even with some of our own players that we choose to almost stay away from it because it might be a battle that we can't win? I just think it's fascinating is that everybody's saying now that the priority now is for the club to take contract 2 to 3 players and their representatives, isn't it? So it's incredible. It's a good job. It's a good job with Liverpool Football Club. And it's a good job, we are the size that we are, and it's a good job that Arne Slot has come in and impressed everybody, because surely that will make it a little bit easier, but it will still be a battle.
It feels that way, and it's like people had it narrowed down in their head to those 3 players, but of course there's the Alisson Becker situation that we knew about, and I think most people can see the writing on the wall there anyway, that like maybe 2 seasons out of Ali, maybe 1, we don't know, but it seems to be that's the way it's shaping up. But Luis Diaz was back in the loop today in terms of contract talks, and people were quite surprised to hear that he was earning, and brace yourself, only 55 grand a week. And of course, I suppose in the greater scheme of things, compared to the daft money that you were mentioning there that Salah's picking up, he will probably want to improve that situation for himself, and he seems to have started like a house on fire, so maybe that's another thing that they're feeling they have to prioritise. But it's interesting to look at the greater squad in general, and another couple of players are going to be in this situation next season, and you could find, I just wonder sometimes, Alan, it's the sort of paranoid conspiracy theorist in me. I sometimes wonder how total the overhaul these people are thinking of is. We all hoped that Arne would come in and we just literally roll on. That's our hope. It's our expectation. So far, it seems to be the thing. But I wonder, is there some sort of grander plan to sort of not eviscerate the Klopp influence, but to really begin again in a quite dramatic way over a couple of years rather than, slowly. Did that ever cross your mind that there could be a sort of a massive rebuild kind of planned where they have players that are almost now uniformly in the squad more along the lines of the ones they want, plus our best talented youngsters like the likes of Kwanzaa and Bradley?
Yeah, I could absolutely imagine that. I mean, it would be one hell of a gamble because of the good players that we've got, but the sheer fact that Michael Edwards is back, it's something that I absolutely think would have crossed his mind, because it's also to do with, we remember when that first batch of players came in, and with Mo Salah and Sadio Mane and Bobby Firmino and whatever, and they were all talking about
how the contracts were put together, in terms of a relatively low guaranteed wage, and everything was based on performances. And maybe Michael is thinking that the time has come.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
To scale back a little bit, but also maybe Michael's. I talk about Michael, but it's Michael and Richard got to make all these decisions. But maybe also they're thinking that is the landscape changing in terms of how transfers are done? Will there ever be another £100 million transfer? Because of there is so very few clubs you can buy at that price. And when I look through the transfer window, Trev, and I don't have the figures to hand, but the amount of young players that the clubs are buying, so you almost want to buy young, sell them while they're still young, and see how it goes, isn't it? So maybe they're also looking at that and thinking, those sort of shot players between 26 and above, what kind of market is there for them? Because football seems to be looking at different things, isn't it? So maybe they're just putting all those figures through some computer for the computer to be able to tell them that this is where we're heading. We're heading towards younger players. We're buying them for less money. Obviously, wages in terms of that would be massive reduction as well. Listen, so it's not unthinkable that football is changing, and when it's changing, Trevor, where do you want to be? You want to be right at the front, don't you? Want to be right at the front.
Exactly, and that is how these guys made their bones and made their name in the first place, was being at the cutting edge of whatever was new. And it really worked for the club for that early period of Klopp's tenure. And the truth of what you're saying, Jan, is borne out, isn't it, by the fact that we only have to cast our minds back a couple of weeks and we see some really highly rated youngsters that probably you'd imagine would not have been sold, perhaps loaned, if Klopp was still here, going out the door for big fees, So I think that just pretty much backs up, as you say, that perhaps the landscape is beginning to just shift a little bit. It's really fascinating to think about that it could be the end to the mega transfers, with the exception of perhaps a PSG or a Real who'll just splash occasionally. Very much worth thinking about. So on the whole then, I suppose you're feeling quite confident about that. It was the spin is spectacular. Obviously, I told you about the Richard Hughes thing. A man I'm sure you probably share a press box with on regular basis is James Pearce. And James was saying recently on a podcast, he said, I think it's really interesting that the profile of what Liverpool are after and what Slot wants in that position has changed since Klopp. Because I spoke to someone at Liverpool last week who said that if they had signed Caicedo, for argument's sake, last summer, would he really have fitted what Slot wants in terms of a highly technical player who's able to operate in really tight spaces and is press resistant and is good at finding space between the lines like Gravenberch did on Sunday. I think there's a big question there, he says, because Slot wants a different type, where Klopp wanted more of a destroyer in that position, someone more physical to break play up. So the whole balance of the midfield has changed now, he says, with the kind of two sitting deeper and one pushing on. At the minute, Gravenberch looks like it could well be the answer. Now, we'd have to say the displays over the course of the season so far have been very encouraging, particularly the United display. But again, you were watching the game and you'll have been aware that the lazy punditry who were saying that Gravenberch was playing wonderfully in the six, that's not really what he was doing. He was part of it too, but then he was part of a more advanced section of the midfield where Alexis was the deeper lying one. And so, like I say, those lazy narratives get perpetuated. You were watching it up close. Am I correct in saying that at least that's what I observed?
No, absolutely. We have a pivot in there. We had to chew him in there, and that's how he wants to play. And you briefly spoke about the number 6 the club wants and the number 6 we want now. Everything now under Arne Slot is based on what you can contribute with when we got the ball. That's basically what he's after. Whereas we often spoke about that midfield three of Henderson, Wijnaldum and Fabinho and the work that they did without the ball and how amazing that was. But that's not what it's about anymore. Now it's about what you can bring to our game with the ball. And Gravenberch on Sunday, I simply think that Arne said to him, get involved. They're basically put two in there. Bruno Fernandes as the most attacking midfield player, but also Chertsey, the striker who drops into that hole. He said, run away from them. He said, just keep getting involved and run away from them, because we'll be able to have an extra man, we'll have an overload because they will run with you. They're used to playing against the number 6. That's always there. But Gravenberch was, and he was there and everywhere was there. And I thought he had a little bit of an easy ride in the first two games because of the way that the two teams he played against played. But on Sunday, he was excellent. Absolutely excellent.
And he wasn't alone, Jan. It was a really, really impressive performance. I think there was a scrappy spell in the game where as I was sitting there making notes, just kind of I was nearly laughing at how comically awful the passing was. Now, I think it's a combination of that plus both teams being very front foot and looking very much to try to win the ball back as quickly as possible. But it made for a really odd spectacle when you've got so many world-class footballers out there, which we have to say they have some wonderful footballers as well. And yet it was that scrappy kind of game. But I think when we got into our flow and into a rhythm, which we probably had for most of the game, you could see, it feels a bit fanciful to say it, man, but it felt like there's a little bit more control. I think maybe we're wanting to push this narrative on to what we're seeing, but it feels that way. The 3 clean sheets would speak to that. I think I was listening to Dave's show earlier on. I think he said, was it 10th or 11th game last season before we managed to keep 3 clean sheets in total, never mind in a row. I don't think we did it last year in a row. So there's got to be something to this, doesn't there? And the players are coming out with these really interesting quotes about how it's every day's a school day kind of thing. They're having to think about the game and learn to do things in a different way. And here's the kicker, Jan. They're seeing the stuff that the manager is saying, panning out. There's the new voice. That makes all the difference sometimes.
No, absolutely. I mean, having been a manager myself and a player, and you try and tell people something or they're trying to tell you and nothing is happening. And it's very, very difficult to believe in things then, isn't it? But that's not the case here. The things that he's trying to tell these players is happening. It is absolutely happening right in front of our eyes. I'm not convinced there's as much happening as some people are making out. But there are things happening, very significant things happening that the players are quite comfortable with. And in terms of on Sunday, I thought, yes, you were absolutely spot on with the scrappy bit. There was a period in the first half where you thought, wow, who's going to grab this game first? But we were never in trouble. They had a good 5 minutes at the start of the first half and the second half, but we were in complete control. I don't think Arne Slot is putting as much emphasis on wanting to win 5 or 6-0. He wants to win games without being in trouble. And that's exactly what we did again. Compare this game on Sunday against the last 2 we had here, when we drew 2-2 and we lost 4-3. how wild they were. We kept, I mean, we totally dominated both games, but we kept allowing Manchester United into the game. We kept giving them opportunities to break on us, giving us all sorts of problems. If you see that or something, no, it was their mistakes that we benefited from. Whereas last year, they benefited from us making mistakes, isn't it? This year, we were benefiting from they making mistakes because we forced them into mistakes, isn't it? So I was sitting there on Sunday, and 15 minutes ago, I'm thinking, if this would have been Klopp, he'd have really gone for it. I can see Arne's like, absolutely delighted with this. I don't need any more. You know, and that can be very difficult as a manager to go, you know, when you got your opposition, and it's not just any opposition, is it? When you've got your opposition where you want them, and just to go, I've got what I want from this game. We don't need to be chasing anything else. You know, nothing dramatic. Let's just see this game out. And I almost felt this doesn't exist in elite sport, but it was almost as if Liverpool felt a little bit sorry for Manchester United. We've done the job now. You know, let's just get to the final whistle. Whereas you always felt with Klopp wanted another minute, didn't he, to see what else he could come up with. Let's see if he can get another chance, score another goal, did it? I think with 10, 15 minutes ago, it was kind of, it's done now. The manager's always what to do. We've done that. They've got no more to give. Let's just go to the final whistle and go home and get on to the next one. And also, I guess, you would be saving some energy in those moments, isn't it? You know what I mean? And all them things are important because obviously at the moment, he's very strong on, he's on my 11, you know, and he's certainly play until the games of the Monday. You know, he hasn't been forced, apart from the half-time one, but he hasn't been forced to be able to make substitutions to get him back into the game or to get the game over the line. You know, the players he's put out in the first place, apart from the word interesting, but I'm not convinced the Ipswich thing was as big either as we make it out to be. So he's been in a very fortunate position.
It's funny, it would take a far better analytical mind than mine to work out what exactly those things that are happening are. I mean, it's quite comical almost to look at the substitutions. You mentioned the substitutions. The same players are coming on at the same time in successive games. You got to love that. And if we spend the rest of the season winning, you know, slightly unexciting games, 1 or 2-0, well, you know, we're all signed up for that. But here's the biggest one for me. You mentioned those 2 games last year, and what I remember about them was the sort of feeling of annoyance and anger afterwards at how we'd been so dominant. I think in both games, as it was often the case last year, we were racking up 30-ish shots against the opposition. But the stats against United, the game stats are really odd. There was 8 shots for United to our 11. They had 3 on target. We had 3 on target. They had 53% of the ball to our 47 and played more passes than us and had exactly the same roughly pass accuracy as us. You put all those stats together and it makes you think, what did I watch? Because that's not what the game appeared in any way, shape or form to any observer, United or Liverpool. Even the most one-eyed United fans would have to admit that it was what you talked about. There was a sense of comfort and control. So it is odd, isn't it, when we can go from this supremely dominant team who can be careless to this team that seems to be emerging now, which is sort of efficient. And I imagine it's the team you'd rather play in, Yad, even though it's great to be involved in exciting football. We play exciting football under Slot too, but we also have those lovely clean sheets.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, in many ways, it was desperately one-sided, the game. It was never a 3-0 game. It was more like a 5 or a 6-0 game. If you're watching that with your own eyes, that impression you get coming away from that game. The stats, they tell you something else, but still they don't. You know, because with that 53% and 11 shots or whatever, they didn't manage to do anything with that. So also, if you're a good team and you're comfortable without the ball, you go, well, okay, you can have it. You can have it here, you can have it there, you can, you know. Whereas last year, they probably had no more than 30% of the ball. But they had those 30% in areas where we didn't want it. In between the lines, putting people in behind our back four. Whereas this year, go on, you know, I pass it back to the centre half, pass it across. Lisandro Martinez plays a pass into the Casemiro, he drops back and you get it straight back, isn't it? So the stats are great, Trevor, but sometimes, just every now and again, to go back to the old trust our eyes, that was a spanking line.
It was exactly the eye test told anyone watching the game, regardless of how biased you are. I would like to spend a bit of time talking about them, and because it is slightly funny, some of the stuff. But just to finish up with the Liverpool side of things and the fact that it is now 3 wins in a row to start the season, it was really interesting to see the post-match stuff on Sky. I didn't get to see it immediately. I saw it afterwards because we just get straight onto the show. But there was Arne was brought out and he was interviewed by them pitch side. Roy Keane asked him a question, and it was basically, how were you able to work out what was going on with United? And he just basically laid it out. And he did so in a way, that was just like really easy for anyone to understand, even a layman or a person who's years and years watching the game. Keane looked genuinely impressed by the response as well. And this is what is emerging, isn't it? A lot of people are I think, quietly delighted at how on it Arne Slot seems to be. He's very much his own man. He's not what some people feared, the yes man type. He's coming in, he has a plan of action, he knows how to execute it. The players have bought in, but the way in which he's kind of communicating that with people is a kind of added extra bonus, and it's kind of almost immediately giving him this status in the game that, he mightn't have been able to earn for 10 or 15 times the amount of games he's played if it hadn't been for the way that he comes over and comes across. I don't know how important that is, but it's a nice little extra, I think, for fans.
It's very Dutch. It's a very demanding country at the best of times. After matches, they'll ask you questions, they'll ask you awkward questions, and they'll expect you to be able to explain how your team has just played, and more often than not, how the opposition have played. So he's obviously well versed in that from his time in the Netherlands, isn't it? But yeah, it was very impressive. How do you see the game? Well, this is how United press. The difference between how they pressed last year to how they pressed this year. So I guess Arne Slot would have been able to go into the players the day before in the meeting and go, listen, I'm telling you, this is how they play. Yeah, believe me, this is how they play. This is what they want to do. We'll be okay. We do this, we do that, and it won't be an issue. And that's exactly what it was, wasn't it? He sort of laid it out. He also laid out the sort of, I think that was a little dig probably where he said, and then you need midfield players who can run. Maybe that was a little bit of a dig, isn't it, to Manchester United. But yeah, but we said it the other week, sort of, didn't we? I mean, as much as people make a big thing out of the fact he's a head coach, not a manager, and whatever, but very much his own man, isn't he? And I think he knows he can do this. That doesn't mean he will be able to do it in the end, because things can go wrong. But I think he kind of feels that everybody's talking about these big shoes, and he's thinking, yeah, they are big shoes, but I'll fit in them. Don't worry about that. I'll be able to everything that I bring. I'll be able to impress one or two people, and already he is impressing people, isn't it? He's a very, very smart guy, that without any shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, and it's just great to see it so early on, to see that self-possession in the man, because, as you said, a lesser fellow would be flopping about in those big club bowl trainers. Let's be honest. You mentioned about how his ability to assess a game is very, very Dutch. I guess maybe poor old Eric may not have been on the factory floor when they were giving out that particular quality, because he's hit a few gems lately in terms of the quotations. His assessment of how United were second only to City in his time there in terms of success, and he kept saying the word success, and obviously he's talking there about the winning 2 cups as opposed to Liverpool's one in that time period, and conveniently ignoring league points, which is probably a far better assessment of success. But then he comes out afterwards with after the defeat to us with the "I'm not Harry Potter" line, and I was starting to fear that perhaps when we get to those kind of quotes that people are talking about and mocking in the mainstream media, then maybe is his time up? But we're hearing that Ineos has backed him. Sometimes that can be the kiss of death. What do you make of this guy? And is there a little bit of delusion there in terms of how he perceives his team, his role, their status? Would he be better off to have a little bit more sort of, I suppose, humility? Or do you think he's absolutely right to back himself in the same way we're saying Arne Slot backs himself?
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
America. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. At Grand Canyon University, we believe in equal opportunity, and the American dream starts with purpose. By honoring your career calling, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu.